Job hunting forecasters expect the United States employment rate to sink to its lowest level in half a century this year.
The labor market showed no sign of cooling as U.S. employers added 313,000 jobs in February. But which occupations and sectors of the job market actually hold the greatest growth opportunities? Myles Udland is a markets reporter for Yahoo Finance, and he's here to talk a little bit about that. So how good is the job market? If you listen to the president, it's excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it is excellent. I think if you're trying to get a job right now, there is a job for you. You know, there's data out. There should be a new report later this week. Essentially, there is one job for every 6 job hunters, or excuse me, there's 6 jobs for every 1 job hunter right now. That's kind of the inverse of what it was after the financial crisis. And I think that what's been surprising economists lately is just the amount of jobs that have been created in the last, let's say, 6 to 9 months, because a lot of economists would expect with a 4% unemployment rate that you'd begin to see wages tick up, you begin to see, job growth slow down. Now, a lot of business owners say they can't find available labor, they're having trouble hiring, but of course they're reticent to increase wages. So I think we're at an interesting point in the cycle just because it's surprising so many people, namely economists, and of course, it's always fun when economists are wrong because they don't like to admit that they're wrong. Yeah, it's been kind of a fascinating last 18 months, I think.
Yeah, and we have been reporting on that, and the president and his supporters like to say that the mainstream media does not report on the wonderful job environment that we're in right now, and we've been doing it for quite some time, so I hope they take note of this.
Yeah, we just said it now.
Yeah, exactly. We just pointed out that we're doing it again. Let's drill down though, what industries can we expect to see the best growth?
Yeah, so I think right now it's going to be in services, health services, education services, all the places that have kind of a demographic tailwind, right? So there's a lot of young people right now, they need to be educated, they need to be taken care of, and there's a lot of old people right now, and we have a continually aging population. So any industry that's going to be levered to that, whether it's medical, again, I think health services is a big one. That was an industry that we actually saw job growth during the last recession, which wasn't just a garden variety recession, right? It was basically the Great Depression, 2.0, and to still see growth in services during that period, and then a continued growth faster than the overall job market over the last 10 years or so, I think shows that that's where the growth is going to be. Now, of course, these are jobs that are very emotionally intensive. I mean, taking care of an aging person is something that's very difficult. I have a lot of family members who are older. I have all 4 of my grandparents alive. We're kind of doing it piecemeal through family, but through some help, and it's really hard work. But this is where I think a lot of the growth is going to be over the next couple of decades, because that trend of the population getting older and everyone living longer is really not going to go away.
So then those are the industries that you think will be able to weather a downturn, because you mentioned this is an interesting point in the cycle. When there's a cycle, things go up and they go back down.
Right, yeah, I mean right now, it seems like if you want to get a job anywhere, maybe perhaps except for the media, things are great, right? Everything is growing. But yeah, you could kind of call that a counter-cyclical industry, right? So educating people, taking care of people is something that's not really going to change. Certainly if you're going to be doing web design, software development, computer engineering, these sorts of jobs are kind of the blue-collar jobs, I think, of the future. Those jobs are not likely to really go away. Now, the exact skills you need, what coding languages you need to know, how you do those jobs, I think is likely to change. Where you do those jobs is likely to change. It's probably going to move away from Silicon Valley to other more less expensive parts of the country. But I think those are really the industries that, again, to use an economist term, you call them counter-cyclical, right? Or they're just kind of, they're going to be insulated from a downturn in the economy. Obviously, if you're going to be in financial services, for example, I think that's a job industry or an industry rather that's in decline, and will probably decline further, given when we have another recession.
So what would you suggest to college students? Because 3 or 4 years ago, many young people coming out of school were saying, look, I've got crushing student debt, and the job market is not so good. We've been sold a bill of goods by our parents who told us, get an education and you'll be able to have a job. Yeah. Is that still the case, or are they going to be able to find jobs commensurate with the education level that they have?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time for that discussion, because if you go back 10 years ago when I was entering college, it was sort of, you have to go to college, right? But I've met more and more people, and I kind of include myself in this just because I was able to get out of college, pay off my student loans relatively quickly, and realize that was sort of the whole game. The whole game was not taking on a lot of debt. So I'm very interested to see where higher education goes, because you hear a lot of executives now talking about the value of a liberal arts education. I majored in English, and I think that served me very well. You pick up economics and finance along the way. But and I don't think that trend is going to change. But I think the main focus now for college students and their families, of course, right? These are kids that are making this decision, is going to be don't become over indebted. Don't take out $100,000 of student loans, because there's a lot of ways that you can can kind of reinvent yourself along the way, to get a new job, get into a new industry. I think we've probably all experienced times where we didn't realize we'd end up here, right? We didn't think this would be the end point, and things kind of happen randomly along the way. But the main thing is if you maintain your flexibility and you don't take on a lot of debt, I think there's going to be a lot of value in that going forward, or people are going to be able to see the value in that going forward, because it allows you to say, okay, I studied business, but I really want to get into, veterinary school or whatever. But if you don't have all that debt, you can kind of pursue that.
Myles, in the beginning, you mentioned that there were 6 job openings per individual looking for a job, at least on paper. Does that mean wages are going up as well?
Well, they should, right? I mean, every anecdotal survey that we get, there was one from the Fed last week, sort of says people can't find qualified workers. Now they're trying to find ways to incentivize people to stay. So whether it's better vacation packages, better health care, they're doing everything they can to not raise wages. But yes, the economists would tell you that wages are going to have to go up. Now what this means is that it means that inflation is probably going to go up. It means that interest rates would probably go up. But we've been talking about this same discussion, or economists have, for 3-4 years now. When the unemployment rate was at 5%, people were saying, oh, wages are going to accelerate. Well, we're 20% lower than that now. A lot of people, including the Fed, think we're going to see a 3 handle on unemployment pretty soon. And so, yeah, I mean, in theory, wages should go up, but I don't know if that will happen.
Why isn't the theory working out that way then?
I think it's because there's been such a my view is that I think the way that the leverage works in the labor market was so distorted after the financial crisis, right? So everybody after the crisis was saying, get me a job, anywhere.
Right.
But the way that a normal cyclical kind of capitalist economy works is you pay up for the labor that you want, and that labor is able to exert some sort of leverage. Say, I have value, you need to pay me that value. And I think a lot of people forgot that that's a driving dynamic. Certainly kind of the collective bargaining, the lack of collective bargaining now is an impact on that. But we're seeing it now with the teacher strikes, West Virginia, Oklahoma. I think there's a real economic story to be told, and kind of a real millennial self-respect story to be told too. I think people that are of my generation are looking around and saying, you can't just crap all over me forever, right? Like you need to respect me. I've gone into a line of work, teaching students. It's really hard, and I deserve to be paid for that. And so I'm really interested to see kind of where that power dynamic between young workers and older executives, older people in power, goes over the next couple decades.
Ooh, that's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, very fascinating. Myles Udland, thank you so much as always. We appreciate it.